Thank you so much, Governor Bryant. And first off, I want to welcome everybody here. We're so excited to have y'all in our great state and beautiful capital. And Secretary Noem, just want to remind you that college football season starts tonight in Oklahoma. So Oklahoma State plays, and it was 1 year ago. How much has your life changed in 1 year? So you and Brian were my guests when Oklahoma State put it to South Dakota State University on August 31st. Then our season just went south after that. But we certainly enjoyed having you and Brian in Stillwater. And it's only been 1 year ago. And think how much things have changed since then. Yeah,
they've changed a lot. Thank you. That was a fun day. We'll have to do that again, except
that's right.
We'll have the Jacks will have to come out on top.
And Brian, her husband, is a great athlete. So we were throwing the football down on the field before the game started and had a great time. And so if y'all are here tonight, anybody wants tickets to the game, just let me know and we'll take you up to Stillwater for the Thursday night kickoff. But
we have a few games in Mississippi this weekend, so I may need to get something's going on there. I know.
Well,
Oxford, Hattiesburg.
Anyway, we're so excited to have you guys here. You know, Oklahoma's experienced more than our fair share of devastating tornadoes and historical floods, and most recently wildfires that impacted thousands across our state. And as governor, one of the things that I'm most proud of is what we call the Oklahoma Standard. You see, and Governor Bryant touched on it, in 1995, after the Oklahoma City bombing, the world watched in shock as people ran into danger to rescue strangers and to care for families they'd never met. And out of that was born the Oklahoma Standard. And the Oklahoma Standard is this idea that when hardship hits, it isn't the government that fixes the problem, but it's neighbors walking with neighbors. And in our toughest moments, we lift each other up and we meet the needs of our friends and our neighbors without being asked. And back in 1995, I remember the New York City Fire Department sent a whole bunch of people to Oklahoma to help us with our recovery efforts. And then we repaid that kindness after 9/11 as we sent resources to New York. And I know a lot of states did the exact same thing. And so Americans are always in this together when disaster strikes. After wildfires in March that ripped through our communities and our neighborhoods, I also saw neighbors jump into action. And that same standard lives and breathes today in Oklahoma. I saw church members walking up and down the street serving coffee and breakfast burritos to those that were surveying the damage. I saw friends helping elderly neighbors start navigating the complicated insurance process while they're literally sitting on the front porch of a home that was destroyed. It's heartbreaking, but at the same time, it's really the very best of humanity on display. And after every tornado, every ice storm, every flood, every fire, Oklahomans, they band together and we begin rebuilding. And if we're known for anything, I love the fact that Oklahoma is known for the Oklahoma Standard. And today and this week, you guys are going to spend a lot of time talking about how to best respond to disasters nationwide. It's our experience that FEMA's response to disasters is not necessarily effective or efficient. During a brutal tornado season here in Oklahoma in 2024, we learned that hundreds of FEMA employees were on the ground in Oklahoma. That sounds great until you find out they were in an office building in Oklahoma City, 75 miles from where the damage was. And you ask any Oklahomans what they were doing, and no one can really tell you. Now, I'm not trying to disparage any one employee, but the reality is that a bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. can't tell people in Oklahoma or Louisiana or Florida the best way to respond to a disaster. That's best left to local emergency managers. Oklahoma's Emergency Management Director, Annie Vest, who's with us today, which I know you guys are getting to share with her some, and you guys are meeting. She shared with me some staggering information this past week. So from 2015 to 2025, Oklahoma had 20 disasters that cleared the threshold for FEMA intervention. FEMA allocated $1 billion to these disasters. But here's the deal. FEMA also spent an estimated $500 million on administrative costs. Every dollar wasted on bureaucracy is a dollar not spent rebuilding a family's home or a business. That, I believe, is what we're trying to change. The truth is we aren't certain how much FEMA spends to administer disaster assistance. The overhead costs are buried, they're spread across programs, they're never fully accounted for. That's not efficient, it's really not transparent. There's a clear solution. Let's slash the bureaucracy at the top and block grant the funds out to the states to respond to emergencies rapidly and efficiently. States can take on more of the responsibility if they have the flexibility to rebuild quickly without the interference of federal red tape and layers of administration. I'm also advocating for a discussion around the threshold for disaster designation. You probably won't hear this from a lot of other governors, but listen, right now in Oklahoma, a disaster costing $7.45 million. That triggers a FEMA intervention. In agreement with my emergency management directors, I'm calling on FEMA to quadruple that threshold. Take it up. Our past disaster shows Oklahomans can manage events up to $30 million. Taxpayer dollars shouldn't be reserved. They should be reserved for true catastrophes, not routine storms. If we look at the last decade, back to the 2015 to 2025 timeframe, we would still have received, if you would have moved that disaster threshold up, we would have still received 93% of that $1 billion. Ensuring that our worst disasters don't leave communities in an impossible situation. We get it. There is an absolute, we need some of that help for the major stuff. But we do not need Washington for every single thunderstorm. We need them for events that truly overwhelm our states. We as states have become entirely too reliant on the federal government. With $37 trillion in debt, we cannot keep spending above our revenue. That's why I've been a proponent for a balanced budget amendment. And just to take us off track just for a second, there's 28 states have passed a balanced budget amendment. We think South Carolina is going to pass it. As you know, if we get to 34 states, we force Congress to take this up. Then it has to be ratified by 38 states. But it just seems like it's out of control, the spending. And if you go back to 2019 spending on the expense side, if we were still at 2019 expenses, we'd have a balanced budget today. But instead, we're spending $2 trillion over our income. And that's just going on our national debt. Okay, I come from the mortgage business. And I remember when I bought my first house in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Governor, it was $66,000 I spent, okay?
All the money in the world.
That's right. It was all the money in the world. Just graduated from college. I remember writing my first house payment, and it was about $500. And I looked down, and only $48 went towards principal. I was like, what? Only 48 went towards principal? But at least I knew in 30 years I was going to own my house. Well, the reason I tell you all that, and I tell this in a lot of my speeches, is because we don't pay principal and interest on our national debt. Even if it was only $48, it's interest only. It means we're never paying it off. And then it gets worse because we put $2 trillion on it every single year. It was $36 trillion in December. It's already at $37 trillion. Congress has a tough job on how to appropriate money, but you have to have a limit, and it's called your revenue, okay? But as states, it's our job to serve our constituents in the best way we know how. States have balanced budgets. We rely on our own expertise and ensure we are prepared for disasters in a way to do that. Oklahoma tries to do that well. I want to thank President Trump, Secretary Noem, for convening these types of groups to focus on how do we streamline, how do we get dollars on target and not through the bureaucracy. So I think that's the heart of President Trump, and we applaud that. And all of us in this room, we want to take care of these disasters, but we want to do it as efficiently and effectively as possible. So again, I want to close and just thank you guys so much for coming to Oklahoma. You're always welcome here. We think we have the most beautiful capital in the country. And I hope our OEM team can be a really good resource to all of you as we discuss how to move forward, how to improve this process for all of America. And if America is going to meet the challenges of tomorrow, we have to put the states back in charge. It's the states that are actually responding to these disasters. It's the states that build schools and hires teachers, not the federal government. We know our land, we know our people, and we know how to respond faster, leaner, and smarter than Washington ever could. That's the Oklahoma standard, and that should be the American standard. I'm so proud to be an American, but I thank God every day that I was raised in Oklahoma. Thank you so much.